I tried to recreate 7 Lord of the Rings characters inside of Baldur's Gate 3, from Gandalf and Aragorn to Legolas, Gimli, Frodo, Galadriel, and even Talion from Shadow of Mordor. Join me on this Baldurized compilation video and let's see how close the character creator can get. And first up is the Prince of the Woodland Realm, Legolas. And just in case you're new to my channel in Baldurized, I take pop culture characters and I try and make them in Baldur's Gate. And if I do enough characters from a series, I'll make a compilation video like this, or I did one for Critical Role's The Mighty Nine. I'll put a card for that here in case you want to check that out. Okay, now focusing on Legolas's build. Normally I try and select a face for the character first. I went ahead and gave him his blue eyes and dye his hair a light sandy blonde, and then I'm just looking for long, straight, elven hair. I considered adding some braids, but they were sticking out a bit too much. And then for his armor, I'm looking for like a tunic silhouette. He keeps it pretty light. I wanted to incorporate shoulder pauldrons if possible. And then for his accessory, I went with a cloak, and I'm dyeing that all with a dark green and black and brown color scheme. And then something I do in all of these Baldurized shorts is I say what class I think the characters would be, and I think for Legolas he would be either a hunter ranger or a fighter with the archery fighting style. And with Legolas wrapped up, we can move on to the wizard who started it all, Gandalf the Grey. And I think it would technically be easier to create Gandalf the White in the game, so I wanted to challenge myself, see how close I could get this to match. And starting off, I went with a mod that lets me use Elminster's face, since it's kind of the oldest face you can get in the game. And then I really wanted to incorporate this beard that comes with the pipe, but I felt like it wasn't long enough. And speaking of mods, I am using mods available in the built-in mod manager of the game. I have a top 5 face mods video. I'll put a card for that here just in case you're interested. But for Gandalf, I really wanted to use a wizard's hat, and I noticed it was clipping through the hair I chose, so I popped back into the character creator and made him bald, and that eliminated almost all of the clipping. And for his outfit, I just looked for flowy robes, I dyed them gray, and then I dyed his hat light blue because that's the color it is in the books. And for his class, I think I said Abjuration Wizard, but now I'm thinking more Blade Singer Wizard. And with Gandalf complete, next up we have Son of Gloin and Proud Warrior of the Dwarves, Gimli. Just remember, nobody tosses a dwarf. And before I go into the choices I made for Gimli, I wanted to mention, if you have a character that you really like in this and want to see an in-depth tutorial on, just let me know in the comments. I'm more than happy to make those. I've already done a few. I'll link a card here just in case you want to see what that's like. But back to Gimli, I gave him his dark red hair, some brown eyes, and then I was looking for a beard that had some braids incorporated. None were quite long enough, but I wanted to make sure to include those. And at the very end, I changed his face. I always cycle through faces again after I've got all the other settings done, just because sometimes a different face ends up being a better match. And for his armor, I'm looking for a combination of padded armor and chainmail, and I give him the cloak as his accessory and dye it the green of the Fellowship. And this is one of the rare cases where I left the armor as the base color it comes as. And for his class, I believe I said a Battlemaster Fighter, but someone mentioned a Berserker Barbarian, and I thought that actually could work for him. And with Gimli complete, we can move on to the Hobbit who literally carried the fate of Middle-earth, Frodo Baggins. And I feel like halflings are inspired by hobbits or vice versa, so I went with that but was kind of underwhelmed with the face choices. I end up using a mod that brings in a human face, and I feel like the proportions on that are just a better match for Frodo. And here I'm giving him his icy blue eyes, and I was actually kind of happy with this curly hair that the game gave me. I think it's Asterian's hair, but it wasn't quite long enough for Frodo. So I just searched for a longer, shaggy hairstyle, and then I pair that with a different set of bangs. It's actually a trick that I use a lot. And then for Frodo's outfit, we can immediately lose the shoes since the hobbits aren't wearing any. And I'm just going for his travel look, so like a buttoned up tunic. And then like so many of the other characters so far, I'm going with a green cloak for his accessory. And for his class, I believe I said I'd make him a rogue thief. And while I'm on this screen, just a quick shout out from our sponsors. Just kidding, I don't have any, but I do have stickers in my shop if you want to check them out. And now that Frodo's complete, we can move on to the ranger who's bound to a wraith, Talion Celebrimbor. And I know that technically this isn't a Lord of the Rings character, but he was getting requested in the comments of the shorts, and it is still Middle-earth. And selfishly, I was pretty intrigued by this idea. I wanted to capture him between the moments where he's Talion and where he's being possessed by Celebrimbor. Celebrimbor. So to represent those wraith-like elements, I gave him glowing blue and white eyes, this tattoo that's taking over his face from one of those eyes, and also some white highlights in his hair. And as far as his outfit goes, I'm looking for an armored look, but one that would allow him to still move stealthily. And I considered going with the crown for his accessory, but ended up landing on a cloak, and then I went with a black and gray color scheme for him. And for his class, I thought that he'd make a good Gloomstalker Ranger mixed with the Pact of the Blade Warlock, and obviously that pact is with Celebrimbor. Okay, but now Talion's complete and we can pivot back to some more Lord of the Rings characters. And next up, we have the true King of Gondor. It's Aragorn. And just in case you were feeling that genre change, I'll put a card here for my Arcane compilation video. I made 6 characters from that show, and I think some of them turned out pretty cool. But back to focusing on Aragorn, I think the biggest challenge with him was actually getting a face match, and I kinda just wish there was more sliders where you could adjust facial features, but that is part of the challenge of this series. And after I select a face, I give him light blue eyes, a goatee, and some disheveled shoulder-length hair. And then for his look, I was sort of torn between 2 ideas. One was going to be more of like his traveling ranger look, and then one was going to be a more kingly look. And then since I'm indecisive, I sort of end up combining the 2. I went with like a light armored look with some kingly details, and then for his accessory, I went with a pair of asymmetrical gloves. And for Aragorn's class, I think you definitely have to make him Ranger. He is the OG Ranger, and maybe a fighter multi-class in there. And with Aragorn wrapped up, we can move on to our final character, one of the most powerful elves in Middle-earth, Galadriel. Also, I want to throw out a proactive apology. If I say any of these names wrong, I am doing my best, but I'm definitely going to mess one up. I remember I said Ariana Grande instead of Ariana Grande, and you know, people rightfully came for me, so I understand. But focusing on Galadriel's look, I gave her some light white makeup to just sort of highlight her natural look, and then I combined a couple of different hair sections, dyed them blonde to get her iconic long wavy hair. And when I had started, I had considered making her from the show, and if I did that, I would have gone with a long braid and an armored look. But I decided on going with the movie look, so I searched for a long robe with some nice embellishments, dyed it white and silver, and then I went with a crown as her accessory. Oh, and it is worth mentioning, with the mods I use, I can only use the appearance slots for outfits, so I am just bound to using one accessory. And for her class, I said Light Domain Cleric, with the ring being the deity she gets her powers from. And that's how these Lord of the Rings characters look inside of Baldur's Gate 3. Let me know in the comments who I should Baldurize next, and if you made it all the way here in the video, please like and follow, I really appreciate it.